Welcome to Ride into Glory. My name is Marco. Thanks for joining me. In this video, I'm going to talk about and introduce one of my favorite things in the world, United States power metal. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, isn't that just power metal from the US? And well, yes, but not exactly. United States power metal, or USPM for short, refers to a very specific evolution of traditional heavy metal that started in the US during the early to mid 1980s. In this video, I'll talk about the origins of the term power metal itself, what USPM sounds like, and I'll introduce you to some key bands to help you explore the genre. In the current day and age, genres of heavy metal music are just so precise and defined. We know exactly what everything means, but this wasn't really always the case. Back during the height of heavy metal in the 1980s, there were just so many bands and scenes popping up at such a fast pace that you really couldn't keep up with everything. Nowadays, we understand power metal to mean a very specific range of sounds, and I'm going to go over it a bit later in this video. But back then, in the mid 80s, it was really just used as a term to differentiate these more aggressive and evil sounding bands than the glam and hard rock leaning stuff that was starting to become so popular. And if you believe it or not, two of heavy metal's most influential bands, Venom and Metallica, were actually some of the first to really even use that term. Metallica had a bootleg demo all the way back in 1982 titled Power Metal. And this was named after a term their first bassist Ron McGovney used on their early business cards. In an interview, Ron talked about how he just wanted a term that sounded cool. He didn't want Metallica to seem like, your run-in-the-mill heavy metal band. Metallica was power metal. They were something extra. And that was kind of the same attitude that Venom also had. In a 1982 interview with Kerrang! Magazine, they called themselves power metal. They were trying to sound evil and aggressive and a little macho to differentiate themselves from these glam bands that were, blowing up. Promoters and interviewers also liked using the term quite a bit in the mid 80s. You had bands like Slayer or Voivod being called power metal. And let's not forget, Pantera also released a power metal album in 1988. And what they were trying to do is kind of make a statement about their sound. Of course, now we understand that none of these bands are actually what we call power metal. And so let's talk about that. What is power metal and what is United States power metal specifically? United States power metal, or USPM, is an umbrella term used to define the range of American bands playing classic heavy metal that sprung up after the new wave of British heavy metal. Now, this USPM movement really kicked off in 1983 before it started petering out late in the 80s. The pioneers of USPM took the more traditional heavy metal sound of bands like Iron Maiden and then they made it something entirely their own. They sped it up. They made it more energetic. They increased the number of solos. The vocals were intensified. They made the whole sound more melodic. The songs were more complex, they were progressive. Now, not all bands sounded the same or went for the same approach, but they really shared one important thing in particular. They moved away from the blues and hard rock inspired sounds, and they added intensity in some way or not. They added power. It's also important to know, right around the same time that USPM was developing, thrash metal was becoming more and more popular. So you had bands like Metallica, Megadeth, and Slayer getting notoriety and popularity among metal fans. And so this also caused some kind of influence in the development of the USPM sound. So it resulted in American bands having a harder edge to their sound, and this is a key defining part of that United States power metal intensity that helps differentiate it from the more popular European power metal style that most people are familiar with. While United States and European power metal, both evolutions of the traditional heavy metal style, USPM tends to be more riff-centric with a wider range of vocals from gruff baritones and tenors to people with impeccable falsetto. Now the European style power metal, on the other hand, is a more chorus driven and it really leans in on those big sing-along vocals and melodies. There's less room for baritones and singers with a rougher edge, whereas that's more encouraged in United States power metal. European bands also tend to utilize keyboards and neoclassical guitar solos, whereas those two elements are pretty much unheard of in United States power metal. Additionally, USPM makes more use of mid-pace sections and more prominent bass. These are very, very important parts of the USPM sound. With all that said, there's a lot of variety within USPM. I've talked a whole lot about what USPM is and kind of what it sounds like and where the influences come from, but nothing, absolutely nothing I say will be better than just letting you hear it for yourself. Here's a 30-second sample from Jag Panzer's Ample Destruction. Now, in my opinion, this album is the perfect introduction to United States power metal, and it shows off the more aggressive side of the genre.
Orders are given to attack.
can hear it right away in that song. It sounds a whole lot like the traditional heavy metal that you guys might be familiar with, but there's something a little bit extra there. It's not quite thrash metal, it's not quite speed metal, but it's got those influences in the sound, and it comes swinging out the gate. You have those aggressive guitars, and the sound just has a lot of power to it. It's very easy to see where the name comes from. And now, like I said, Jack Panzer is a very good example of the more aggressive side of United States power metal. If you found yourself enjoying tracks like that, then take a look at a few other key album. Here are some good examples of other albums in that more aggressive USPM style. Take a look at Liege Lord's Master Control, Omen's Battle Cry, Hellstar's Nosferatu, Riot's Thundersteel, and Attacker's Battle at Helm's Deep. But this aggressive style of United States power metal isn't the only style. There were a whole lot of sounds and a whole lot of blends in the scene as well. There is a more melodic and progressive side of the genre. Some bands decided that they wanted to incorporate more melody, or they wanted more complex song structures, right? So these bands aren't quite as aggressive as what you heard with Jack Panzer, but they still have an intensity that's a little bit more than just what you would hear in the traditional heavy metal. So let's take a look at one such band. I think a great example of this more melodic or progressive style of United States power metal is Crimson Glory. So let's take a 30-second look at that. You can hear how this is a bit different than the Jack Panzer style that we heard just a little bit ago. There's more emphasis on those guitar melodies. The vocals are bigger, they're cleaner, they're not really aggressive, but they're just as powerful and impactful on you. Now, if you enjoy the style that Crimson Glory plays, make sure to take a look at these other albums in particular. Warlords Deliver Us, Queensryche's self-titled EP, Savage's debut Sirens, or Hall of the Mountain King. Also take a look at Fate's Warning, Awaken the Guardian, and Heir Apparent's Graceful Inheritance. Everything I've talked to you about in this video is just scratching the surface. There were so many bands that are excellent and unique in the United States power metal scene. And if you want to learn more about USPM, I wrote an intensive 3-part series that you can check out, and I'll make sure to put a link down in the description below. Now, what did you guys think? Do you like United States power metal? What are some of your favorite bands or albums? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you'd like to see more videos on United States power metal or on any topic in particular, just let me know. I'd be interested in hearing what you guys think. I'd like to take this time to thank the patrons that support Ride into Glory. Without you guys, we really couldn't be doing things like this or keeping this site up and running. So thank you so much for your support throughout these years. I'd like to take a little bit of time to also thank my dear friend Gonalok. So he makes some great metal videos and he's helped me a lot. He's also just been a good friend in helping me just get started in general. So thank you so much. And make sure to check out his channel if you like heavy metal content. He's a hilarious dude. And of course, thank you to the viewers for watching and supporting. I hope you guys liked the video. Again, if you have any suggestions or comments or other things that we can talk about, would love to hear them in the comments. Thank you.